Okay, Parshas Va'era. Last week, if you remember, we said something that we asked the question, what was Yocheved thinking? Yocheved took a baby, put the baby in a basket, put it on the Nile. We mentioned that today, if she would do that, she'd be arrested, child endangerment. So what was she thinking? So we explained that she was able to get the power of Paro and the Chartumim to reverse his gezerah, the edict to kill all the firstborns was going to be reversed. So then we asked the question, if that was such a good plan, why did she wait 3 months? So we mentioned that she had to wait 3 months because Paro was counting from when Yocheved and Amram got back together again, 9 months. So even had she put the baby in sooner, it wouldn't have made a difference. Paro would have said, I don't believe the scars. The baby isn't even born yet. We have to wait another 2 months. So, this is the question that someone asked me. If she had to wait the 3 months anyway, why did she have the baby after 6 months? I mean, the baby was born premature.
Yeah,
Before. If she had to hide the baby for those 3 months, and she could do nothing to save the baby or the other children, then why didn't Hashem just let Moshe stay in the stomach the full term, the 9 months? Why was the baby born 3 months early? You understand the question?
Yes.
Ladies, you understand the question?
No.
The mother would
Because the
get used to
question,
him.
what?
The mother would get used to him.
Well, you're almost close to the answer. Moshe was born after 6 months. He was born early, premature. And then she hid him for 3 months. So the question is, why did Hashem bring Moshe into the world 3 months early? Why not just let him be 9 months like a regular baby? So Rabbi Faskowitz, who's from Torah Center, Mechutin of mine, he said to me a very interesting answer. He said to me, must be that even Moshe Rabbeinu, who was a Ish Elokim, a man of God, such a wonderful person, couldn't be the man he was without a mother taking care of him for at least 3 months. That means had he been born at 9 months, she put him into the Nile, and the next day the daughter of Paro took him, he would not have had that Jewish mother.
No feeling.
No feeling for a Jewish mother. Even the greatest leader, Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem said, no, you don't go from being born to Paro's house. You need 3 months, at least 3 months, to be with your mother, to be with a family. Even the great Moshe Rabbeinu needed a Jewish family for 3 months. That's a very interesting answer. Very, very interesting answer. You know, I'm preparing for Parshat Yisro, because when I'm going to be in Israel, I'm speaking. It says that Yisro sent a message to Moshe, a very interesting message. He said to Moshe, I'm here with your wife Tzipporah and her 2 children. Shnei boneho, her children. He didn't say, and I'm here with your 2 children. Her children. So the Meforshim say, why did Yisro say it's her children? Because he was the father-in-law, and he wanted Moshe to understand. You want them to be your children? Stay home and help raise them. Mm-hmm. You haven't been around for the last year. I understand, you're saving the Jews, you're in Egypt, you're doing great things, I got it. But who's home raising the children? Tzipporah. Therefore, whatever the children are, whose children are they? Hers. They're not yours. Because you're not home. Now, that's a very, and the Torah brings us down, It's not as if the Medrash says this. The Torah says that Yisro said, and her 2 children. Very powerful message. Very powerful message. I'll give you another thing from the Parsha. Very interesting. If you do the Haggadah, we'll ask this fine gentleman over here. You ever do the Haggadah? Did you ever read the Haggadah on Pesach night? Good, I'm glad. How many times is Moshe Rabbeinu's name mentioned in the Haggadah? How many times? 100 times? 200 times? Sarah? 0 times. Well, that's close. Close. 1 time. 1 time. In the entire Haggadah, there's a pasuk that says, "Vayaminu b'Hashem," they believed in Hashem, uve Moshe avdo. It's the only time. Everybody wants to know why. It's an unusual thing. Moshe Rabbeinu is one of the main players. and his name is not mentioned. Imagine you have the play Romeo and Juliet, and you don't even mention Romeo once. Doesn't work, right? Doesn't work. So Moshe Rabbeinu, his name is not mentioned in the Haggadah. So I saw a fascinating answer. Who was the first person to tell over the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim? Moshe was. Who did he tell it to? To Yitro. It says that Moshe sat with Yitro and told Yitro everything that happened to him and the Jewish people and everything that Hashem did to Paro. If you're telling over the story, how many times do you mention your name? Never. Almost never. You never say, and Moshe did this, and Moshe did that, or I did this, and I did that. You're telling the story. So since Moshe was the first person to tell the story, so the Haggadah is fashioned after Moshe's story. When you tell the story, you don't talk about yourself. He didn't talk about himself. Therefore, his name was not in the Haggadah. It's a very interesting answer. Okay. Moshe was raised in the palace of Paro. Why? Why was it necessary that Moshe be raised in the palace of Paro? Yes. So the short answer is that in order to be royalty, to be a king, you have to be trained by kings. If Moshe would have grown up as a slave, he would not have understood how to lead an army, how to fight Amalek, how to deal with the world. He would not have known politics. In order to be royalty, you need to be trained by royalty. That's the short answer. It also brings down another interesting answer. We talked a little bit about this. It's very hard to follow someone who you grew up with. If Moshe says, I'm going to be the leader, people who grew up with him would say, Moshe, I remember you in 3rd grade. You were such a troublemaker, and you cheated on a test, and you got thrown out of class. It's very hard to respect someone you grow up with. So Hashem said, you know what, I'm going to take Moshe away from the Jewish people. He's going to grow up outside the camp of Goshen, and no one's going to really know stories about him. You're not going to know about who he was, who his friends were, who his classmates were. We know very little about Moshe. And then I'm going to bring him back. People could respect a stranger. They couldn't respect someone they grew up with. It's very interesting that that's what it is. But it goes a little bit further than that. It goes a little bit further. There's a saying, there's an expression. From the forest comes the handle of the axe. What does that saying mean? From the forest comes the handle of the axe. Do you know what that means?
Wood.
An axe cuts down trees, right?
Yeah.
But the axe, you just can't hold the axe top. Yeah. What holds the axe?
Wood.
Wood.
Yeah.
And where does wood come from? Trees.
Yeah.
So it comes out that the wood that helps the axe cut down the trees came from the trees themselves. Okay? That's called irony. That from the forest comes the wood, the handle to the axe that cuts down the trees. Why does this apply over here? Paro said, I see that there's going to be a leader amongst the Jewish people. I'm going to kill him. Hashem says, ha ha ha, not only are you not going to kill him,
You're going to raise him.
but you're going to raise him. You're going to feed him, you're going to clothe him, he's going to sleep in your bed, you're going to play with him, he's going to be in your house, your daughter's going to adopt him. You know, not only did Hashem say that Paro, kill him, forget about it, you're never going to get near him to kill him. But it's even worse. He's going to learn everything from you. You're going to teach him. You're going to train him. You're going to make him into a soldier. You're going to make him into a king. You're going to give him all the tools he needs to succeed. From the forest comes the handle for the axe. From the house of Paro came Moshe. It's a very interesting irony,
You want
the
that
power
from your own life.
from your own right, from what it is. Now, we mentioned, very interesting, that there's a custom on Shavuot to decorate the shul. That means most shuls on Shavuot put out flowers, and in the olden days they used to put out trees, green trees. What do you do here in Lefrak? On Shavuot, do you buy flowers?
No,
Yeah,
red.
flowers and put here.
Flowers.
Red flower.
Red flowers.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting color, red. I don't know about that. You put out trees at all?
No.
They used to put out trees, green trees, until, I guess, the Christmas trees came. And then they stopped doing that.
In Bukhara, they call it red flower holiday.
Red flower holiday. Interesting. Where does it come from? So everybody says because Har Sinai was filled with trees and flowers. Well, Har Sinai was in the desert. I don't know how many flowers and trees. Even when Hashem appeared to Moshe at Har Sinai, it was in a bush, a thorn bush. If you look at thorn bushes, they're brown. They're not green and they're not red. And they're not, So I saw very interesting. They said, no, that's not the reason why we do it. When Yocheved put Moshe in the Nile, that was on Shavuot, the 6th day of Sivan. And the Nile had all around the side of it green trees and flowers. And those trees and flowers protected Moshe a little bit. So since Moshe was put in the Nile on Shavuot, and those trees and flowers protected him, that's why we put it in our shul. Nothing to do with Har Sinai. Had to do with Moshe and Mitzrayim. So I found that to be very interesting. The next thing is also just a side point that's going to be important for a little bit later on in this year. Moshe was the head of all the Nevi'im, the Adon HaNevi'im. Hashem says to him in Parshas Yisro, Vayom Hashem Moshe, Hinei anochi bo elecha ba'av ha'anon. I'm going to come to you in the cloud, in the cloud. Ba'avur yishma ha'om b'dabri imoch. The people will hear me talk to you. V'gam b'cho ya'aminu la'olam. That means the people will hear Hashem speak to Moshe. This is how tefillin look. This is how mezuzah looks. And they'll say, oh, okay, Moshe knows what he's talking about because we heard Hashem tell him. Okay. So the Meshech Chochmah gives a very interesting question. He says, I don't get it, he says. The Torah says that the people will believe in Moshe forever. Moshe was 80 years old. He lived to be 120. It means he had 40 more years. Maybe he would do Avedot. Maybe he would sin. History is full of people who were big tzaddikim for 80 years, Yochanan Kohen Gadol, and then went bad. Yitzchak, who was blind, Hashem wouldn't say Elokei Yitzchak, because Hashem doesn't put his name on a person who's still living, because the person can do sins, can do Avedot. How did Hashem know for the next 40 years that Moshe was guaranteed not to sin? So the Meshech Chochmah says that how can a person sin? He has free will, bechira, right? You have free will. Hashem took Moshe's free will away. When Moshe came down from Har Sinai, they referred to him as an Ish Elokim. A man, Elokim like God. Means that he did not have a Yetzer Hara. No Yetzer Hara, he couldn't sin for 40 years. So the Meshech Chochmah, it's an amazing thing the Meshech Chochmah says. The Meshech Chochmah says that he could not sin for 40 years because he didn't have a Yetzer Hara. Okay. Parshas Va'era. How many Makot do we have in Parshas Va'era? 7. How many do we have next week in Parshat Bo? 3. Okay. If I ask you, when is the start of the calendar in the beginning of Parshat Va'era? If you went to the local grocery store in Goshen, or you went to the Lefrak Jewish Center in Goshen, and you wanted to get a calendar for the year, when is the first month of the Jewish calendar? Tishrei. Makes sense. Because Adam HaRishon was born on Tishrei. The world was created on Tishrei. So for the last 2,000 years, the calendar sold in the Lefrak Jewish Center in Goshen was a calendar that began in Tishrei. All of a sudden, we get a new halacha. Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe ve'el Aaron, hachodesh hazeh lechem rosh chadoshim. New calendars. What's going to be now the first month of the year? Nisan. Tishrei becomes month number 7. All the old calendars throw out. They're no good anymore. New calendars. Nisan is Chodesh Rishon, Chodesh Sheni, Chodesh Shlishi. Why the change and why now? Okay? Interesting question. Why the change and why now? You have an answer?
Why is it Nisan?
Why? Why the change? And why did Hashem tell Bnei Yisrael, new calendar, new change? The answer is fascinating. Listen to the answer. Moshe Rabbeinu comes to Paro and says, I'm coming in the name of Hashem, name of God. What is Paro's answer to Moshe? What does Paro say to Moshe?
I cannot be.
I'm God. What are you talking about? There's no God. I'm God. And he says, it was in the Haftarah this week. He says, Li Yori, the Nile is mine, I created it. Vani Yasesini, I built it, I made it. So Moshe says, what are you talking about? God created heaven and earth. And Paro says, there is no God. I created heaven and earth, I created the stars, I created the moon, I created the sun, I created all the planets, I created the grass, I created the animals, I created everything. Okay. Hashem says to Moshe, okay, that's interesting. I've got an idea, he says. In how many times did Hashem say during Maaseh B'Reshet, let it be this, let it be that? How many shlavim, how many times?
10.
10. Ba'asara ma'amorot nivra ha'olam. The world was created, 10 times Hashem said, let there be. So Hashem said to Paro, you know what, Paro? Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to destroy the whole world, recreate it, one makkah for every time I created the world, and let's see how you do. I'll give you an example. In Bereshit, it was dark. Vayomer Hashem yihi or, let there be light. Right? That's what God did. I created light. Okay, Paro, let's see how you do. Paro, there's going to be choshech. Okay, take it away. Let's see. You created the world, right? You created the sun. You did it 2,000 years ago. Do it again. Show me. What happens? Nothing.
He couldn't.
Couldn't do it. Hashem said, I said, let the grass and the trees grow fruits and vegetables, etc. Okay? He says the arbe, all the food is eaten up. Okay, Paro. No more food. Your turn. Say, let there be food. What happens? Nothing. I said, I'm going to create Adam. I'm going to kill all the firstborns. Okay, Paro, bring him back. Your kid just died. Go bring him back. Nothing. The world was created using 4 elements. If you know anything about Kabbalah, there are 4 elements to creation. What are the 4 elements? Water. Earth. Air.
And
Light.
wind.
Oh, that's right. What's that?
Sun.
There's wind, earth, water. One more thing. Fire.
Fire.
And it's in the pasuk. I'll show you the pasuk. Bereshit, in the beginning, bara Elokim et hashamayim. Shamayim is 2 words. Eish umayim. Ve'et ha'aretz. Aretz is dirt. Ve'ruach Elokim. And the wind, the spirit of Hashem. So there are 4 elements to creation. Fire, water, earth, wind. Hashem said, when I bring the Makot, I'm going to use those 4 elements. Water, we know water. There's the Dam Tzifar there was water. Fire, when it hailed, it burnt like fire. Okay? Wind, the locust came, and the keening came with wind. Great winds came. And earth, the keening was the earth turned into lice. You know, Moshe, Aaron had to hit the earth. So Hashem says, I am going to totally recreate the world in front of your eyes. If Cain, if Hashem, this is what the Arizal says, if Hashem recreated the world during this time period, so when is Rosh Hashanah now? Nisan, Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So Hashem said, you need a new calendar. New calendar. It's such a fascinating idea. Hashem says, I'm going to recreate the world, and Paro, you're going to have to change, and you're going to have to show your God. Paro failed. But since Hashem took the world that was, and each element stopped it, broke it, and fixed it, and recreated it, and all of that took place now on Pesach, so now Nisan becomes the new month. HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, Rosh Chadashim. So therefore Nisan becomes the new month. It's a very fascinating
Yeah,
answer.
that's why they have for New Year's.
And that's why we have different New Years and different things, because all those things happen throughout that year of the Makot. The Makot was actually
But
about 9-10
calendar
months.
still the same calendar. I mean, it starts from the same month calendar.
Yeah, pretty much. We still use Nisan, but all those Rosh Hashanah happened when those plagues happened. Okay. The next thing I'm going to tell you is something it's fascinating. And I want to read it to you inside, and I want you have to listen to this very carefully. The Pasuk says in Va'era, in Perik Vav Pasuk Yud Gimel, Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe vel Aaron. Hashem spoke to Moshe and Aaron. Now, whenever the Torah says Vayidaber, what kind of tone is harsh, strict, orderly, like tough? Okay? When mom and dad speak to kids, there's the soft tone. But if you have a bunch of names, and your mother uses your whole name, do you have a middle name? What's your middle name?
David.
So what's your full name now?
Aaron David.
Aaron David. So when your mother wants to be nice, she says, Aaron, come here. When she says, Aaron David, you're in trouble.
Means Vayidaber.
What?
Means Vayidaber.
Yeah, that's Vayidaber. Okay. So Vayidaber Hashem and Moshe vel Aaron. Vayitzavei el bnei Yisrael. He gave them instructions to the Jewish people. Ve'el Paro melech Mitzrayim, and to Paro, the king of Egypt. Now it's unusual because it could have just said Ve'el Paro. We know Paro is the king of Egypt. Rashi says something unusual. Rashi says, Tzivom Olov, Hashem commanded Moshe and Aaron, very cautious. Listen to this. Lechalek lo kavod b'divrayim, to speak to Paro with the utmost respect. Okay, now let's understand that. Hashem said to Moshe and Aaron, when you go to Paro, don't call him, you murderer, you butcher, you lowlife.
Speak with respect.
You have to call him King of Egypt, ruler of the world, master of the universe, which is bizarre. Let me give you an example, okay? Let me give you an example. Imagine if Hashem said to Mordechai, when he speaks to Haman, always address him as Mr. Haman. Wouldn't happen. Let's say, for example, in the World War II, there was someone named Dov Ber Weissmandel. He saved thousands of Jews out of Germany from Hitler. Imagine if someone said to him, when you speak about Hitler, Hitler was a butcher, he was a murderer. You have to call him Mr. Hitler, the honorable, respectful Chancellor of Germany. He should live and be well. Never going to happen. He said, you're crazy, you're nuts. I'm going to say Hitler, Yamach Shemo V'zichro, he should die a horrible death. He's going to embarrass him and curse him to the end. So why did Hashem say to Moshe, when you speak to Paro, you must be very respectful? So there is a pirush from the Chassam Sofer. The Chassam Sofer was a Rav in Preston, and he says something shocking. He says, in life, sometimes we get embarrassed. Sometimes people talk about us, people embarrass us, people yell at us, people spread rumors, lies about us. And whoever does that is going to give a din v'cheshbon, they're going to get it when they come up to Shemayim. But a person comes home and they feel broken. They feel sad. They're embarrassed. They can't walk outside. Hashem says to them, you know what? Because you feel so broken and so sad, I'm going to take away all your avedot. All of a sudden, that guy, as if he went through Yom Kippur, all his sins are forgiven. So the Chassam Sofer said that Hashem said to Moshe and Aaron, listen to me, Moshe. Paro really is sensitive about his kavod. If you start making fun of him and you put him down and you embarrass him, you know what's going to happen? I'm going to forgive all his sins. If I forgive all his sins, I can't bring the 10 plagues, I can't take the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim. So do me a favor, don't do that. Talk to him with respect.
Oh my goodness, why it's so deep?
It's unbelievable.
Oh my goodness.
And then he brings down a story. Listen to this story. In Navi, there is a commentary, a pirush called the Radak. Reish Dalet Kuf. If you open up a Navi, you'll see there's Rashi, there's the Radak. The Radak was a rabbi in the community, and he had a very nice brother. His brother on Rosh Hashanah blew the shofar. Okay? One Rosh Hashanah, he's up there blowing the shofar, and all of a sudden, he has to do shvarim, two, two, two. It doesn't come out. Now, I've blown shofar many years. I can tell you that when you're up there, you're a little nervous because you never know what's going to come out of that shofar. You also have to remember the whole place is quiet. No one is talking.
Yeah, everybody listens.
No cell phones. Everybody's listening. So you have maybe 2,000 eyes on you. And usually all around you are the little kids who are looking up at you as if you're God. Because you can blow this shofar and no one else can blow it. And now you're trying to blow it and it's not going. So you take a pipe cleaner or a Q-tip and you try to clean it out. Maybe you have a second or third shofar. Now it gets worse. Let me tell you why it gets worse. In order to blow, I used to play clarinet when I was a child. Clarinet, trumpet, shofar. Your lip has to be stiff, has to be tight, because it has to make a seal.
Yeah.
When you're nervous, your lip starts to quiver, starts to shake. Mm-hmm. The more nervous you get, the more you can't blow. So you have to find a way to relieve that tension, to relax, in order to be able to get the lip tight in order for you to blow. But remember, everybody's looking. And you're trying to blow and it's not going. This fellow tried and tried, couldn't do it. The Radak had to take over. Had to go up and say to his brother, let me take over. And he took over and blew the rest of the sounds. His brother that afternoon in the house was crying. He's so embarrassed. How can he go back to shul? He can't walk into the place again. Everybody's talking about how big of a failure he was. Everybody's making fun of him. He was so embarrassed. That year, he had 3 daughters who could not find shidduchim. That year, all 3 daughters got married.
After them, all of them married.
All of them married. And the shvarim has 3 sounds. And the Radak said to him, because you got so embarrassed, whatever the problem was in finding shidduchim, there was a obstacle. There was a barrier. You got embarrassed, Hashem took it away, all 3 girls got married.
Open the way.
Listen to the next case. Listen to this. There was a case of an apartment building. In Israel, you have apartment buildings where 12 people or 15 families live in one building. In one building, there was a lady who was the biggest yenta you can imagine. You know what a yenta is?
Yeah.
A yenta is a blabbermouth.
Yeah,
Right?
24 hours.
24/7. She knew everybody's business. And if you said anything to her that got her angry, soon everybody knew your business. Okay? It got so bad, the members of this apartment building had a meeting, and she didn't own the apartment, she was just leasing, and they decided that they were going to revoke her lease, they were going to throw her out. But you don't do that without asking the rabbi, the Rav, you go to the Rav. So they went to the local rabbi, the Orthodox rabbi, and they said what happened, and they feel that they want to throw her out. And the rabbi says, you have every right. Nobody can live with a snake. When a person is a blabbermouth like that, and everybody's secret is everybody's business, you can't live with a person like that. But before you throw her out, let me tell you a story, he says. He says, years ago, there was a rabbi whose child was very, very sick. And went to all the doctors, and there was nothing they could do. They decided to have one day a Yom Tefillah, a day when everybody's going to come and say Tehillim for this child. And there was a lady in the community who heard this and says, what? We're going to get the whole community together for that rabbi? That rabbi is so mean and so no good. And she started destroying this rabbi's reputation. It got so bad, the rabbi was ashamed to even come to the Tefillah day for his own child. He was so embarrassed. A week or 2 later, the child had a complete recovery. So the rabbi said to the people from the apartment building, he says, many of you, he says, are very successful in business. And maybe you're so successful
Because
because this lady keeps embarrassing you, and therefore Hashem forgives all your avedot, and therefore you have all this bracha. If you get rid of her, what's going to happen to your businesses?
No.
And they had another vote, and they decided to let her stay. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. You have, the Chazam Sofer says that Hashem said to Moshe, be careful. Don't embarrass Paro. Because if you embarrass him, I will forgive him. And if I forgive him, I can't bring my makot. I can't take Jewish people out. There's another